Okay, great. Good afternoon and welcome to another wonderful Women at Zynga event. I know that there's a lot of internal folks here as well as external, so I want to thank you guys for taking the time to come to this wonderful event today. We are going to have Kathryn Avery from New York City to talk about wellness, and our own Danielle Benz will be moderating the conversation, and I am really looking forward to hearing what they both have to share. But for those who are not familiar with WAS, Women at Zynga is the biggest ERG that we offer here at Zynga, and it offers a lot of opportunities in terms of how to build and grow women within their careers. And I think I've shared with many of you guys before, some of the programming that we do is with the mentorship match, as well as the big Trisha Yearwood event we had a couple of weeks ago. And then this is our next one that I'm incredibly proud to share with you all. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Danielle, and she'll introduce Kathryn to you guys.
You want to come back? Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming today and taking time out of your schedule and enjoying your lunch with us. We really appreciate you being here. WAS is really special to us here at Zynga, and we're excited to bring speakers in, such as Kathryn, to kind of share about her passion and what she is pursuing in her life, and kind of a wealth of information I think she's going to be able to share with all of us to kind of lead a more mindful approach to our day-to-day, whether at work or with partners or whatever that may be. So to kick things off, I'd like to read off, this is the only part I promise you I'm going to read off of here word for word because it's such an impressive bio, I want to make sure I cover everything. So Kathryn has appeared in various films and television shows, including co-starring in Vox Lux with Natalie Portman, a recurring role in Boardwalk Empire, and multiple episodes of SNL. She's performed in live shows for brands such as Hermes, Revlon, Athleta, Target, and Victoria's Secret. She has danced behind major artists such as Justin Timberlake, Usher, Katy Perry, and Nicki Minaj. How cool, amazing. No big deal. In addition, she has led the Brooklynettes dance team for the past 3 seasons as captain, bringing her talents to Barclays Center and the global NBA games around the world. She's such an inspiration. In addition to all these incredible, performances and jobs and everything that she has accomplished, she's one of the most amazing, thoughtful people I've ever had the opportunity to sit and chat with. And every conversation with her seems to just kind of fly by. Another thing I'd like to share about Kathryn is that she is a coach at Obey. It's a fitness studio. It's a live fitness studio. It's based in New York. They do live performances at different times during the day, and then they have a library of workout classes that you can partake in. It's really incredible platform to be able to use on the go. If you're someone that likes to work out, but you can never find the time while you're traveling or whatnot, it provides a space to be able to do that and not feel like you can just kind of throw it out to the wayside when you're traveling. Mm-hmm. Kathryn, in addition to these classes that she provides to participants, there's this underlying tone of self-awareness and encouragement. And it's been something that I know Fong has really connected with Kathryn with through these workouts. It's not just this intense, a little obsessed. That's why she's here today. Fong makes things happen. So I'm hoping today that Kathryn is going to be able to share a little bit about that approach and how she kind of came to this realization that taking care of yourself isn't just physically going to a workout class, eating well, all the things that we do when we think of wellness, it's how we talk to ourselves. It's how we treat ourselves every single day. We're the voice in our minds. There's a lot of noise around us, but we're the ones that are with ourselves all day, every day. And we can often go to a place of maybe doubt or disbelief. So most of you, I think I've seen most of the people that attended the workout class this morning are here. And I can say that it really kicked our butts. It was intense. And there was, like I said before, her resume speaks for himself. She's an incredible athlete and dancer. And I'm curious, Kathryn, what led you to this path of dancing and wellness and focusing on your health first?
Well, thank you, Danielle, for that introduction. Thank you, Fong, so much for having me. And thank you, everyone, for coming. It's an honor to be here. So as any career, with dance, it's kind of a crazy thing because there's no security and there's no path. So you absolutely have to love it. And every day for the past decade, I've had to choose, am I going to choose comfort or am I going to choose what I believe is a purpose of mine? And so that's what has sustained me in this career, even though I thought about, maybe I'll just go back to school and become a nurse. Like, I've thought about all these things. And I'm really glad that I decided to not give up, because I had this sort of unction that if you don't give up, you will succeed. You absolutely will. With fitness, I got that into fitness out of necessity. I was like, I need money. And I had to pay for my life. And in the commercial dance industry, you can get, like, I did a national commercial, and I'm like, set for the year. Great. But then, you don't work for 4 months. So it can be very challenging. So I got into fitness for just stability. And I've always, obviously, as a dancer, loved body awareness. And so it was a natural transition for me. And I almost left fitness because in New York City, in the boutique fitness scene, it's so superficial in a lot of ways, and it's really vain, and I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, and I was just depleting my body physically, and I'm like, is this really worth it? And so I actually took a break from fitness for 6 months and kind of stumbled into Obey, and I actually struggled with whether to stay there for a while until something really clicked with me, is that at Obey, since I'm communicating to cameras, everyone can actually hear me, whereas in a live class, the instructor, you're like, what are you saying? Are you telling me to get lower? I'll try. So I was actually getting a lot of feedback from people. Naturally, I was just like trying to encourage others, and knowing that every single person on the other side of that camera, just like everyone here, has a unique life, a unique story, a unique mind, a unique heart. And if I can be a positive force in any way, why not? So I started getting messages from people coming in that were saying, like, between my, whatever it was, my meditation or my faith or my this and your classes at Obey, I've made it through some really tough seasons in my life. So I just wanted to thank you. And I was about ready to leave fitness in general. But when that started to happen, I was like, there's actually a beautiful thing that can happen here. So my bosses noticed, and we branded it as a soulful class. And, that allows me to every week just come up with a message that's pointed, that's focused towards something specific. And I realized just in my life, through my own experiences, my own struggles, and also training with clients one-on-one, and just in every one of us as we experience communicating with people, that oftentimes underneath the surface, there's a lot going on with every one of us. Like, how do we work so hard that we're getting sick from stress? How do we continue to come to work and we're ill? How are we just going, and all of a sudden, where's this decade gone? This is a theme in our society and in our culture. And so it became this passion of mine through my own experience to say, what, I'd love to make space for people to ask themselves questions, to check in, to be aware. And something beautiful that Kevin, my fiance, and I just experienced recently was that it's so powerful when you can be aware of everything happening around you, of your family, your friends, your coworkers, but then also at the same time be able to check in and say, what am I actually feeling today? How do I feel? What am I thinking? Most people, we're so good at just picking ourselves up by the bootstraps and like smacking ourselves in the face and being like, pull it together. But we don't have balance when we neglect and ignore ourselves in that way. And that's why we find ourselves striving a lot. And we're running. And that's why we find ourselves sick from stress. So it's just a huge hope for me in my life to say, how can I help people become aware and find this part and move forward and not end up getting to the end of our days and feeling like, wow, actually money and comfort isn't making me happy. So that's why I decided to stay in fitness. And something interesting, I was just thinking about this, is like the awareness part. To focus, I don't know if maybe you did this on pictures, if you put your finger in front of your face and you focus on the details of your finger, and then you look and try to focus on something very, very far away, what you're going to do is you're going to develop and train your vision to be able, you're going to keep your eyes at 20/20 for longer. It's like it's a practice, and pitchers will do this so that they can, feel the texture and see that ball and then visualize it getting right in the strike zone. It's the same thing with your daily life. If you can learn how to hear what your boss is saying, hear what's happening in the meeting, and then also like in that same moment, check in and be like, I'm feeling really anxious right now about what I have to say. I'm going to calm down and recognize that this is a process and there's support around me. But most of us, we don't have practice with that focus. So that's what I try to do in my classes is just bring, because you're working out and it's tough and I'm asking you to do a lot of things physically, and at the same time I'm asking them to think. And that connection, when it happens simultaneously, produces pretty brilliant results, which neuroscience is figuring out.
Yeah, we'll definitely be touching on that later.
Yeah.
Which is, Kathryn and I, to provide a little context, I met her recently when I was in New York, and we chatted for what felt like maybe 5 minutes, and it was an hour and a half, and she shared so much about everything that she's doing as far as different roles that she's playing, and also school that she is attending. And so I'm excited to share a little bit more about that. But I'm curious, as you were talking about your class and how you noticed that you wanted to stay with Obey because it provides this opportunity to connect with people and allow them a space to have more self-empathy and self-awareness. Have you always led your life in that way? Was that a process? Like, how did you come to that realization? We all want to lead by that, but it takes some serious work to make ourselves lead with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always wanted to lead with compassion and kindness, but then I realized I wasn't doing that for myself at all. And I think it's so easy for us to encourage others, celebrate others, praise others, but when it comes to receiving praise, you know, people like this, maybe it's you, this was me. I was like, no.
That was me before this.
Yeah. And I realized as I thought deeper about it, it's like, there's a belief under here that I'm actually not worthy of this praise. There's a belief under here that me actually sharing, like, it's you give me all your problems, I'll help you. But if I want to even give you an inch of what I'm going through, then I'm a burden. And I really don't want to be a burden to you. And so I recognize that belief, I believe that I'm a burden. That's kind of sad. That's kind of heavy, right? It's a lot. And so I had to dig deep for me and realize, like, where is that coming from? Where is that stemming from? Part of my own personal past is, like, I think I ended up in a very unhealthy relationship, which is pretty easy to do at a young age, and I was in that for about 7 years. And it was one of those relationships that was destructive mentally and emotionally, not physically, but if anyone has been on the other side of neglect or on the other side of harsh words or criticism, this can even be in an office. Anytime where you feel unseen, unheard, unknown for an extended period of time, your body's registering it as a traumatic event. And trauma is just simply a distressing or disturbing experience with unprocessed pain. That's all it is. So, like, when you hear, like, you had a traumatic childhood, you're like, oh my gosh, were you, like, abused? But no, we don't have to necessarily think of trauma in that way, and I think it's a detriment when we do, because we often end up saying, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. But for me, I had to realize, okay, how did I end up in this relationship? Why am I allowing someone to treat me this way? Why do I have no boundaries? Why am I receiving and accepting? And I realized, well, what I believe about myself is the level to which I will accept treatment. And then you know, it just dug me deeper, and I did not always have the strength to stand up for myself or to believe in myself. And so I sought help, professional help. I sought counseling, and that really helped. And digging into just a lot of reading. I've probably read like 150 books in the past 2 years. Like, I just trying to consume, because I'm like, I don't really want to live the rest of my life this way. I don't want to keep pushing forward I know I could. I see it around me all the time. I could absolutely keep going on this path, but I really don't want to. There was a guttural urge in me when I started to realize these beliefs as they started to pop up. I was like, no. It was like this inner resilience just like rose up within me, and I was like, no, I'm gonna figure this out. And just fun fact, like the first time I went to counseling, I just word vomited everything in my life, and I was just like, fix me. That's right. We're gonna do this. Like, we'll get into this. And my counselor was like, cool. So you're actually gonna have to feel. And I was like, oh. Like, you're actually gonna have to grieve some of these things. And we are so good. We actually, I mean, your body develops and your brain develops coping mechanisms for a reason. You know, whatever you've been through in your life, if there's been a stressful situation, say in your office, you're trying to protect yourself. So you're naturally gonna be like, okay, when I enter this situation, I'm gonna need to be quiet. I'm gonna need to withdraw. That's how I'm gonna protect myself. So we don't need to judge ourselves or condemn ourselves for having these coping mechanisms, but we do need to recognize that they are there, and they're so worthy of further digging, discovery, like the investigation. What was the question?
You nailed it. I feel like that's most of these talks. It's just, there's so much to share in such a short period of time. So one of the things that I think you and I spent a lot of time talking about, which you just briefly touched on, was this voice in our mind, this self-doubt.
Yeah.
When, you know, a situation happens at work, it can quickly be misconstrued, and we tell ourselves these stories and spin ourselves up. You know, we talked about an example of like a meeting being canceled, a really important meeting that's important to you, but the other person on the side of it doesn't really understand how important it is, and they cancel it because in their minds, they know that they can't devote 100% attention to it, so they want to move it to the next day. But you're left on the other side of that thinking, oh, you just kind of pushed me off. How do you, you know, approach those situations where it's so vulnerable and so raw, and especially in a work setting, so that, you know, you're leading authentically and honoring how you're feeling, but not, you know, treading that line of getting too vulnerable.
Absolutely. And nobody wants to be seen as the sensitive one, right? And in a company setting, you're like, I can't say that I'm feeling badly that you canceled this meeting, because then I'm going to be perceived as weak. And so I think it's about, now we're talking about company culture, really, like what's the environment in the company? It seems like you guys have incredible company culture here. But I think it's fostering the safety with your leadership and the people around you to have the ability to say, hey, you know, I felt this way when this happened. The story I'm telling myself is that you didn't really care about my work, and I've been devoting weeks to this. And then that gives them the opportunity to be like, no, clarify. I really think I want to honor what you're doing and give it the full hour. And then we can move forward. So I think feeling confident to be able to communicate, knowing, okay, I'm not a super sensitive person, but I do, like, you don't have to say I'm going to be perceived this way necessarily, but you can say, you know, want to just open up this communication, want to find some clarity in this area. But with our internal thoughts, I kind of thought of it like, has anybody ever gardened before? I know you guys are busy people. One person. All right, well, we know the ways of the world. So your thoughts are kind of like a seed, and the more you think about it, it grows. It's going to grow. And with weeds, who knows that you don't even need to sow a seed, weeds will grow. So we're thinking a million thoughts per second, and if we have, you know, sowing either a negative seed or these weeds grow up and we continue to think about it, that's like watering that weed, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And if anybody's ever weeded, you know that the larger the weed, now you need the right tools, you need a whole machine sometimes, but if you can get good at picking out the weeds right when they spring up, super easy, and you get it at the root. And so you're creating an internal environment with your thoughts every single day at every moment. And so it's about just learning how to become aware. What's the internal environment that I am creating right now? We get so focused on what we're eating. We're like, I need to eat the right food so I can sleep well, so my brain functions, so I can feel good, so I can feel energized. But why are we not caring about the internal environment of our heart and our mind, which is way more powerful than anything our bodies will ever do? And our body is, you know, it does feel good to be in shape, but nothing is better than having peace. And saying, when you're staying up at night and your mind is spinning and you're anxious, how great would it be if we could say, you know, I have such a huge tree of anxiety in my brain, I'm just going to go sit under it and take my refuge in this anxiety. But wouldn't it be great if we could water the thoughts of peace, if we could water the thought of confidence in our abilities and awareness of who we are, and rest under that tree? And it takes work. It takes work, which, I mean, we can talk about the science behind it too. Where, if you want me to, I can go into that now.
Yes, absolutely.
But in the past decade, neuroscience has done major leaps in what they're discovering. And you've probably heard that the more times you think a thought, the quicker it goes through your brain, actually develops a groove in your brain. So the more times you think, dang, I'm stupid, shouldn't have said that, the more you think it, the quicker and quicker, and it's just going to be automatic. So we start to have these automatic thoughts. And we have to actually heal our brain and retrain our brain and stop ourselves from thinking that thought and pave a new pathway. So these thought trees are, every thought is quantum energy. It's actually building something physical in your brain. This is how people recover from vegetative states. They think. Your mind is more powerful than your brain. Your mind is what's controlling the biology of your brain and your body. So that's why it's really important for us to actually have time to think and to reflect, and not just think about, what am I doing tomorrow at 9? What am I doing at 10? What am I eating for lunch? What am I eating for dinner? How do I feel? What am I struggling with? Why is this hard, so hard for me? Giving yourself time and space to ask those questions will produce more fruit in your life than 10 hours of work in a day, every day, all day, every week will ever do. So it's really, really important that we set aside that time and that space to think, because once you can develop that internal environment that is beautiful, you can retreat there. And it's a nice place to be, rather than a place of fear, self-doubt, all of these things that we can go on and on that many of us struggle with. And there's so many resources out there for us now. And the beautiful thing is that there's hope, right? So part of my research, I was just doing a research on intergenerational transmission of trauma, just for fun. And, they discovered, they did a study with some mothers and infants, mothers with a traumatic background. And when you have an emotionally disturbing or distressing experience, it affects the amygdala. That's a small almond part shape in your brain. Your brain is comprised of 3 different parts on 3 levels: the reptilian brain, the limbic brain, which is part of your emotional processing, and then above that is your neocortex, which separates humans from other animals, and that's what gives us the reason. But the emotional processing center is the amygdala, and when you undergo any type of negative experience, which, like I said, doesn't have to be extreme, it actually becomes slightly damaged, and you stop registering distressful situations as distress. This is why people who are in abusive situations return and return and return. They actually cannot see and sense danger. How much more compassion would we have for our horrible stepmother if we knew that, wow, her brain actually cannot process. She can't even see when I'm hurt. There's people that have, so this mother, she would give birth to her child, and the mirror neurons in a baby's brain, they start firing immediately after birth. They mirror what the mother does, and you hope to establish a safe attachment. But those mothers with trauma were establishing what they call an insecure attachment. So the baby learns that he or she cannot get their comfort from their parent. So then they go into survival mode, and this often lasts throughout their life, which is why it's okay, this is tough. But the beautiful thing, the term is reorganizing. The mothers who had gone through traumatic experience, but they were reorganizing, basically saying, how can I look at this situation and have compassion for the people that were around me, like for the aggressor, perpetrator, or anything, and see, who am I? Basically, they're just retraining their thoughts. They're reorganizing. They weren't healed and fine and totally perfect, but they were healing. They were able to develop an earned attachment with their child. So they were able to develop a secure attachment. That's the beautiful thing. There's always hope for wherever your brain may be on the level of, if it's a little diminished in some areas, or your brain isn't firing this much over here, there is so much hope that the thoughts that you think change, grow, transform, and heal your mind. So that really gave me so much hope. And I was like, wait, okay, this isn't just, you're lovely, self-love, celebrate yourself. It's much more than that. It's the outcome of your life and how you impact your children and your children's children and your office. And so this is a worthwhile thing to think about. This is a worthwhile thing to spend our time on. And it's worthwhile for us because we end up feeling more fulfilled. We're going to end up being resilient.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. When Kathryn shared this with me, this was like a massive light bulb going off my mind. I haven't researched it as extensively as you have, and it's fascinating to think about this kind of trickle-down effect. But it's also it makes me incredibly hopeful that there are ways to retrain your brain. How would you, one thing we kind of talked about a little bit, but it's fine to, practice self-love. It's fine to practice, know that other people, who knows what everyone in this room has gone through. How do you, when you're going through your own, traumas or feelings or whatever it may be, you approach with a situation, lead with empathy, and know that the other person on the other side of it might be really frustrating. It might be a really intense interaction, but how do you lead with how have you learned to kind of lead with empathy, especially with our, loved ones and friends and whatnot?
Oh, yeah. It's just practice. It's just like anything physical that you do, you're not going to start being able to do 20 push-ups. You're going to start barely doing one. So when you're in an interaction with someone and you're like, you start to feel insecure, or you start to feel whatever it is that you deal with, and they're really just pressing in, they don't care. You just practice doing this exercise internally. Like, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying, I'm hearing this feedback. How do I feel about this? What do I want to feel about this? This is key. Because people have asked me, like, well, how do I love myself? Because how do I even believe that I'm worthy of love? Like, you keep telling me I'm worthy of love, but like, how do I believe it? I think if you approach it from that perspective, you're already defeated. But if you're like, I want to believe that I'm worthy of love, that's enough. That practice, just saying, I want to believe that my boss, sees me as capable. I want to believe that I believe I'm capable. I want to know that I am capable. Like, even just saying that to yourself in your mind will take you miles and miles. So that's what I had to do. That's how I had to flesh it out. It's kind of like 2 different cycles. You can call it a peace cycle or a pain cycle, or you can label it whatever you want, like confidence cycle, great cycle, horrible cycle, whatever you want to do. I had to recognize when I was going in a cycle. And this for me was happening relationally. Obviously, I came from an abusive situation, and then my fiance is here, and he's so loving and so great. And it was actually the hardest time was actually learning how to receive love. Like, how do I actually receive this? This is really difficult. Like, he'd be like, let me rub your feet. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Because that's like how it was to the point where, like, my friend was, we were watching a Shakespeare in the Park, and she was like, lean your head on me, like, lay down. And I was like, okay. And I was literally like this, like, hovering my head above her leg. And she kept, like, putting my head down, like, lay your head on me. I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm literally not fine. Put your head down. And so there was a lot of moments between us where he was like, whoa, like, I love you. I'm trying to really give you this love and give you this space to be you. I want you to be celebrated and you to know who you are. And it was really hard for me. So there were moments where I just wanted to, like, get out of the car. Like, we'd be in the car and he'd be so great, and I'd be like, I have to leave. And because we, obviously, in any close relationship, you're diving into the deepest parts of each other. And that can be hard. And hopefully in a good relationship. And so there would be times when I really wanted to run away, and I had to, in those moments, decide, like, what am I going to choose? Because it's easier to be single, to be honest. Because you can just put your earpods in and be like, I want to dance with somebody. Like, when you're single, nobody's checking in on you and asking, like, how are you dealing with, like, are you procrastinating today? Did you get that thing done? Or like, are you, like, did you send a text to your dad? Like, nobody's checking in on you. And so it's a lot easier. So it's like, it would be to our advantage to surround ourselves with people that care about us enough to fight for us, to care about us enough to ask us questions, to dig deeper, and this is, like, can happen at any age and any time, and nobody should ever feel like, I'm behind, ever. Because, I was talking with Fong about this. It's just, time is not a semblance of, or a way to distinct growth. Like, growth can happen really quickly when you have a great team of support around you. It can happen when you have whatever that catalyst is for you, and we're going to talk about this later too, but whatever is extremely motivating for you, it'd be good to find that thing, and you can find yourself being pushed into an acceleration with the right people.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. The acceleration for me starts with Fong. She'll be the first one to encourage me along to do things like this. And there are a lot of other people in the room. No matter what age, you have so much wisdom to share. It's just being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. That's how you're going to connect with people. It's really scary, and it's really tough sometimes. But on the other side of it is so much comfort from that community around you. I want to shift gears for a second and talk a little bit about, well, one, all that you're doing right now. You're studying in school. You are still performing in a multitude of gigs, dancing gigs, and teaching at Obey, which is a couple times a week that you're doing these classes. How, and also, not to mention, you were the captain of the Brooklyn Nets over the last 3 years. I know that you recently kind of took a shift away from, you're still working with them in some capacity, but you've decided to kind of move away from that to focus on the next phase of your career. Can you speak to the decision to do that? Something you clearly love very much.
Oh, yes.
And they all kind of tie together really well, but can you speak to making that decision and then what's next after this?
Yeah. I think for me, I realized that just because something is good doesn't mean it's the best. And I've been just trying to dig in and see, life is so short. You know, where do I want to focus my time and my energy, and sort of becoming an essentialist and saying no to most things and saying yes to the things that matter most. And the Brooklyn Nets has been one of the most incredible experiences for me. I have learned how much I love people from that job. I was in that relationship, I was so isolated. Talk about the enemy of growth, isolation. And we can be isolated with people around us, you know. So let's try to get out of that. But with the Brooklyn Nets, I realized I love communicating. I love helping people grow. I love helping people develop. And it's a part-time job with full-time, really full-time status, especially as captain. I was on everything, doing everything. And I realized I could do this for as long as I want, and they would love to have me there as long as I want. But is this the best use of my time? Again, it's this comfort. Okay, it's a stable income, and I know it, and I'm really great at it. But it also came to the point where I was like, if I stay too, I'm kind of contributing the same ideas to the actual job itself, and or I could leave and really make room for someone else to flourish and empower someone else to bring their own creativity. And so I took the last year to train up another teammate and build her and prepare her for that leadership role. And I've just spent a year of being very intentional, saying, this is my last season. I want to make the most of it. I want to leave. Like, how is the office different from my presence? If there were 100 more of me in this organization, what would it look like? And that was a really convicting question for me at the time. If there were 100 more of you, like, what would Zynga look like? Would it be an office filled with support? Would there be gossip? Would there not? And so I really was intentional. And anytime you're going to make a major life transition, it's really great to give yourself the proper time to process and give it a proper ending, because you can't really start a beginning without an ending. So my decision to not come back was not because I had another great thing coming. It was because I know that my life is short, and I really don't want to acquiesce to comfort. And so that's what it was for me. And I don't think it's an accident that tonight is the night that they're choosing the team, and today is the day that I'm here. It's almost like this beautiful, you know, that there's other things. There's other things for you to go, and places for you to see. And there is no reward without that risk. There is no turning point without that leap. And basically, from all the books and things that I've read, I'm like, okay, you got to go. You got to go for it. And whatever that means for you, giving yourself that courage and that push. And so that's why I decided to do that. And knowing that there will be more dance gigs, and who knows what could come with dance, which is fantastic, but my whole heart is really for people. I love interpersonal communication. I was asked recently to imagine my purpose, not the steps to get there, but just my purpose. Like, just imagine it. What does it feel like? And I just imagined myself hugging someone that was crying. And it's just like, wow, that's a purpose for me. And so I would encourage each one of you, imagine, take some time to imagine, what is my purpose? Not the steps to get there, that's gonna stress you out. But what do you feel like one of your purposes? Maybe, you know, it could be anything. Every one of us is so unique and so different and so beautiful. And then think about how it feels, and that will be such a motivating factor for you moving forward. And not to stress about the steps, and not to stress about, do I need to stay at this company? Should I go to that company? Should I do this? If you're developing yourself, you're developing your purpose. If you're developing your identity in your mind and all these things, nothing is wasted. So no time you spend at any company, which I'm sure every one of you could attest to. Every single job you've had, you've learned a lot from, whether it was terrible or great. Nothing in your life is ever wasted. There's no waste of time. There is no sitting in traffic, and this is a waste of time. There is a lot that you can be doing while you're sitting in traffic. Internally.
Lots of podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
And you kind of touched on a little bit of the exercise, not exercise, activity that you led us through after the class this morning, which was so incredible. But right at the end, we were kind of cooling down, stretching, and Kathryn led us through, kind of talked us through like our day coming up and what did that look like and barriers that might arise and bringing ourselves back to that moment of just pause, lying down after a really hard workout and just being relaxed. And so we've decided to do something a little bit different with this fireside chat and allow Kathryn to share space here for us to kind of think through some of these, beliefs we might have about ourselves. So I'm gonna give Kathryn the floor now, but thank you so much for allowing me this time to chat with you. You're such an incredible person to be around and your energy just lights everyone up. So we're happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'll stay seated. Okay, I'm so excited about this. So I'm gonna ask us some questions. You have a notepad and a pen, so you can find that, and we're just gonna brainstorm together. You don't have to share. I'm not gonna call anybody out, okay? This is just for you, a time to think, a time to process. Because brainstorming is just easier when someone forces you to do it. So, in your notebook, I know it's tiny, so you can just flip through the pages. But the first question is pretty simple. I just want you to write down, how are we feeling, by the way? Feeling good? Okay, I know the subject matter isn't the lightest, but it's hopeful, right? It's great. Okay, so on the first page, I just want you to write down a list, and you can write down as many things as come to your mind, so if you gotta keep flipping, go for it. Just a list of character qualities in people that you would love to have around you. It can be anything, you want someone that's funny, a list of character qualities of people that you would like on your side, on your team. So as you wrap up your last few qualities, the next question I'd like you to answer and brainstorm is, what are character qualities that you have right now that are positive? Character qualities that you currently have that are positive. And if anything negative comes to your mind, don't worry, we're going to get there in a second. I know you got more than that. So on the next page or down from that list, if there's any character qualities that you would like to just develop, if there's some things that maybe you're not as strong in, a little weaker in, what are character qualities in you that you would like to develop, get better at? Okay, now that we've got our brains going, I want you to write down beliefs that you have about yourself. And I want this to be everything: positive, negative, neutral. I believe I am. All right, now let's all just collectively take a deep breath in and out. Okay, cool. So every action stems from a belief. I want you to look at your list, and I want you to circle any belief that may be limiting, or any belief that you would like to shift. So if there's anything on your list that may be limiting, or one that you would like to shift, I'd just like you to circle it.
Yours are all positive.
We feel good about that? Yeah? Hello, we're good? Okay. So every action stems from a belief. So your actions and your behaviors and your things, they can be either things that you're doing or that you're not doing. Things that you are, maybe ways that you act that you don't like, you'd like this behavior to change, or maybe it's a behavior that you're just totally avoiding, something you're not doing, anything you're not looking into. So this is a great exercise to do later with for me, it was like a whole list of things. I realized that when I personally, Kathryn, lack clarity, I withdraw. So that can be anything. If I lack clarity in finances, I'm just going to withdraw from budgeting because I just don't know how to find clarity in this area. Or if it's whatever, it might be personal. If I lack clarity with my ability here and there. So I had a whole list of things I wasn't doing that I wanted to do. And this is where we're going to take one thing. So it can be something you do or something you don't do, something any kind of behavior that you are currently doing in your life. So it could be like, I have 2 glasses of wine every night after work and I don't want to. It could be, I'm avoiding this. Think of something in your mind right now of a behavior that you're doing or not doing that you would like to shift and write that down. It can be one thing, and you can ask yourself all the rest of them later. We got it? Okay. Now we're going to ask the why. And with this part, when you answer why, think about what fear or belief are you thinking? What is your thought process as to why you are doing or not doing this thing? Like really think about this one. What is the fear? Great. Now next to this, I want you to write the truth or what you would like to believe. So you've addressed the fear, maybe the lie. What is the truth or what you would like to believe about this particular thing? Or you, what is the truth you would like to believe about you that will help you? We're almost there. 2 more brainstorming questions. All right, so this is really amazing to establish. Whatever behavior that you're trying to change, it's never going to change with effort. It's going to change with a belief. So for instance, if you're a smoker and you're trying to quit smoking, someone offers you a cigarette, you're like, no, I'm sorry, I'm trying to quit smoking. You're really saying, I'm a smoker who's trying to change. But if someone offers you a cigarette and you say, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. I don't believe that I'm a smoker. That's not who I am. So I don't do that. There's such a subtle shift, right, in your behavior changes. So when it comes to moving forward in our life and addressing our thoughts, when we think about the things we're doing or not doing that we want to change, we have to say, why? What am I really believing? What's the fear? Oftentimes it's like totally false. We're believing that we're not smart. We're believing that we're fat. We're believing that we can't move. We're believing that we're incapable. We're believing that we're just this way. I've always been this way. I'm just always going to be this way. That doesn't have to be our life. What do we want to believe? For you, you can call this your truth or what you want to believe, because you won't always believe it right away, and that's okay, right? Then the final two things that I'd love us to think about, the next thing I want you to write down is, what would motivate you to believe? What is motivating for you personally to shift this area of your life? What would motivate you? It's a tough one. And the final one is, what action can you do right now towards this thing? What action can you do right now? What action can you take? So this exercise you can do, and I encourage you to do with anything as the week goes on, as the day goes on, as things come up, whatever it is. Like, I'm not facing that I'm afraid. I'm not facing that I'm sad. I'm sad about whatever it is. You can ask yourself these questions. It's worthwhile to take the time. This is how you're going to grow and thrive. And you can practice this exercise of focusing in on something close and focusing in and having that wider perspective, that vision. Remember that little picture so that when the next time you are running to work, late for a meeting, trying to prepare for this, also cook dinner, meal prep, clean your house, walk your dog, all the things that happen, and the running list of things we do, even when you're in mid-cycle at 2 in the morning, take a breath. Remember that you can be aware of everything around you and also be aware of the environment within you, and know that there is an exponential amount of growth that you can do, and you have more impact than you could ever imagine. This is where I'm getting motivational. Every one of you has such a unique story. No one can solve a problem and come at something as creatively as you. Every single experience that you've been through, from the way you were raised, the culture you grew up in, to the jobs you've had before, they're all working together in a swirl in your brain for you to make all of the connections. No one else can make these same connections, which is really exciting. So I just want to thank you all for spending your lunchtime with me here on Tuesday, and thank you so much, Fong, for this amazing opportunity to come speak with you all. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and that this exercise was helpful, and that you can take it and use it in other areas as they come up. Thank you so much.
First of all, I just want to, I'm not sure if the mic's working, but I want to thank Kathryn for coming all the way out from New York to help motivate us. And the truth is, like, as I was going through the exercise, I didn't realize how deep it was going to get me in a group setting like this. So I hope you guys were as moved as I was. And thank you to my beautiful Danielle, who did such an amazing job with the Fireside Chat. For those who may not be aware, she was a little nervous, but she did such a killer job, and I'm so proud of you. So thank you, everyone, for coming, and we look forward to having you guys at the next event.
And if anybody wants to stay and chat, I'll be here if anyone wants to talk.